All right, here's the quick video book summary of The Author Startup, a radical approach to rapidly writing and self publishing your book on Amazon. And I'm just going to show you and go through the book really quickly, just right inside of Vellum here, which is, I love this tool. So if you're on a Mac, you might want to check this out. It shows you everything, it shows you how the book actually looks in all the different platforms. So Kindle Paperwhite, which is black and white, iPad, iPhone, so forth. We'll leave it on iPad for now, but let's just quickly go through this. So, one of the things I do in this book is I provide a action plan, and it's kind of unique. At least what I've seen is I hate going through Kindle books and highlighting everything and then trying to either get those Kindle highlights out of the browser at Amazon or your desktop Kindle version. It's very difficult. And so what I suggest in this book is go right to the action plan. And in fact, you can look at this action plan. It's also listed back here in the appendix, the action plan that's taken right from all the chapters. But I also provide a downloadable version here in the Read This First section. So it's kind of cool that they can actually, they don't have to mess with anything in Kindle. Even note taking, I basically tell them which highlights that are in the book, and that's right in the action plan. So in the introduction, I was thinking about this one night, and how would I go about writing a book quickly? Because what happens is if you're not in a mastermind group or something like that, and you've got people constantly patting you on the back and moving you forward, you can get stuck. You can lose momentum all the time. And so I wanted to write a book about writing a book and purely writing a book and getting all the other noise and chaos out of the way. Things like what software should I use? How do I set up Kindle? What do I do with my website, my CRM? All those kind of things will just distract you. And what you really need to do is not worry about being a bestseller. And I'm not saying this for everybody, but if someone who's just brand new, you don't want to lose momentum at all. And we'll talk about that in a second. But it doesn't have to be a bestseller. You just need to get it done. And then, so the first section here is called Mindset. And so I just have 4 short chapters on kind of setting the record straight in your mind. And I talk about this boogie board approach, which is about a story about taking my son out the first time. He's 5 years old, teaching him how to boogie board. And basically, I started explaining to him how to boogie board as a wave was coming. He just grabbed the board from me and rode it in. And at that moment, and that was in the middle of me explaining to him, and at that moment I realized that I couldn't have explained every possible outcome. I couldn't have predicted every little thing that would happen to him. He just had to do it to learn it. And so my summary of this chapter is you cannot learn exactly how to write and publish a book until you write and publish a book. And what I did is I modeled this book, you'll see in chapter 2 here, after The Lean Startup by Eric Ries. And really, a quick summary of the Lean Startup is it's about startup companies in Silicon Valley, but how they used to spend all this money and do all this marketing, and they really never produced anything worth selling. And he talks about creating this minimum viable product in the market. And I thought this is really a perfect example of what you should do when you're writing your book. You need to keep momentum, and you need to focus on publishing a book and just getting your minimum viable product out there, which is your book. And so that's what we talk about here. And I have a quick chapter on positive disruption and how this is such a great opportunity now with self-publishing that allows the readers to decide who they want to read and the writers to write without some gatekeeper determining whether they are worthy of being an author. And I wrap up the mindset with chapter 4, where I just talk about what our theory in the author startup is just getting smaller bite-sized wins. So let's just get that book written and published. We can go to the launch after that. We can do all this other stuff, the author platform, all that kind of stuff. And why is that radical? Why do I have radical in the subtitle? I believe it's radical because we're so inundated with information that in this high-tech world and all the training classes and everything, you get so inundated. If you don't have the right support group, or you're just starting out, it's very easy to lose momentum and motivation. So we want to just do something radical, and that's simplify it and just publish your book, and we'll worry about everything else later. The second section is about writing the book. I won't get too much into that, but I talk about doing a mind map of the entire book. At first, I give an example, and here's where I start delivering these action items. So I say, okay, here's what we're going to do. We're going to take a blank piece of paper and start mapping your book. That's action item 1. Chapter 6, I talk about now taking that mind map and mapping the chapters and going through, and then we actually have an action item to do a chapter level mind map. And we're just taking bite-sized pieces here at this point. And then in the chapter 7, we talk about outlining, and in my book, Author Your Success, I bring out the Dauntless chapter framework, and that's what I talk about here. Here's the 6 questions you want to ask in every chapter, if you possibly can, to keep the reader engaged and to defeat any of the objections they might have to the material you're providing. And then I'm not giving any options here. I'm saying, look, in our world, we communicate best when we're talking. And I think dictation is the best way to get started. And I like the Rev.com app. And I talk about some of the choices of transcribing it after you've recorded it. I also talk about using Vellum to just organize and publish and create the Kindle version or EPUB versions of your book. Or if you don't have a Mac, I would choose Readsy Online, which is free. So I give you those 2 tools to use. And then, of course, there's some action items around that. And then when we get to the edit section, I talk about the imposter syndrome. And I had a great conversation with Candela about this, and when I interviewed her about her book, Build Your Dream Team, and we both kind of agreed that you're going to have this imposter syndrome at some point. And the idea here is just acknowledge it's going to be there. Every author has it, no matter how good they are. And I put a post in here that I put into the mastermind group and on social media about, don't worry about that. Everyone started where you are, and just get past that. And then I take a kind of another radical approach, and I say, skip the read aloud and go right to a draft version of your audiobook, because I think you actually, at least for me, listen differently and actually pay more attention to how it sounds when you're reading aloud to a recording that you think somebody might listen to later. And I know that from doing an audiobook, you never get it right the first time, so you actually sound better and learn more about your draft by reading it to and recording it. So I say, here's how to record it. Here's a couple tools you might use. Here's the action items for that. There's a nice video out there by Rob Dirks as well on how to use GarageBand. Then I say, look, after you've done this, you've recorded it, and you've kind of cleaned it up a little bit for how easily it flows. Then we're going to run it through Grammarly. And there's a free version. I use the paid version. But at the very least, you want to run it through the free version. And this does some really cool stuff. You download a bit of it to your machine, but you can also do it online, and it will check a lot of your grammar. And then after that, you're going to send it off here in Chapter 12 to an editor, and I give you some options here. In the clean and polish section, we're trying to keep to the bare minimum viable product, but it is important that you get your title right and your subtitle right. And I talk about how to do that here in a nutshell. And I also point them out to a quick video demo I did for this book itself and how I came up with the subtitle for this book. So it's kind of cool. For book covers, people do judge a book by its cover. And I talk about kind of the process I went through. In this case, with this cover, I used Ida for that. And you can see I created a mock-up. I didn't think it was good. I just wanted to give her some idea what I was looking for. And here's what she came out with, this awesome looking cover. So love that. Stohan did my other covers, Author Your Success. And this is a book that's coming out in a couple months, Launch Your Success. So I show those in here, and I basically say, look, here's how I use right now, but go get a cover done. And that's one thing you want to spend money on. Obviously, we all know that. In the publish section, I really haven't seen it anywhere, but because there's a little bit of confusing parts, but I basically go through every item of the KDP Create a Book screen. A special reference to the I'm ready to release my book now versus save as and saving it as draft versus the pre-order options. And I talk about that a little bit more down here. And then we say, let's get that thing up and ready to go. And then this chapter is all about just getting confident and hitting that button. So we're pressing the button on publish. And then we're going to have a calm launch day because, there's no craziness. We can wait it. We can treat it as a 1 month stealth period, a 2 month stealth period, or a 1 week stealth period. But the day we hit publish, there's no panic because I've had it myself and I've seen others run into this where there's things that get delayed and all kinds of stuff and you're readjusting your launch teams. And this is saying, look, just publish it. The only thing really at risk is if you wait past 30 days to actually do a coordinated launch is the hot new releases section. So I don't worry about that in this book. And then we talk about next steps and it's enjoying the moment. And we've separated everything out, not absolutely required to publish a book. And here's the thing. If it's your first time, you might not have liked the process. Well, you saved yourself all that other pain in the butt stuff. If you didn't like it, now you know. And you did the minimum to determine you didn't like it. If you did like it, well, we've got some more steps to do. One is to go out and get reviews and talk about that a little bit here and some of the rules that Amazon has. And then we just talk about an author platform. So now this is time we might want to start working on our author accounts, doing some things in social media, and creating an author website and so forth. So those are some things you can do, and we've got a nice list of action items. And then I just mention, if you want to do a launch at some point, you can do that, and you can be a bestseller. My Launch Your Success book will be coming out in a few months, and this is a way that people can kind of get on that list. And then what we do here is have the action plan. And so these are all the action items from every chapter right here. But also, you can just download that in a Word document, use that kind of as like a written checklist. So that's the extent of it. We've got about the author and some of the other books of mine, and then review request in here. But that's really the extent of the book. I wrote it in 26 days, actually about 21, but from the time I conceived the idea, it was February 2nd, to the time I wrote it was February 28th, and I used the exact same process that I'm describing in the book. Now, I know from a review standpoint, sometimes it's hard to think of what things you want to write in a review, so hopefully this video helped, but I'll just give you some ideas too. A couple of things that I really like about how this book is done is the action plan is you really don't have to highlight anything. All the tasks that I'm telling you to do are in the end of the book, and they're also downloadable. There's some links to video demos in there, so that's kind of cool, extra stuff. And just the idea of the minimum viable product, the MVP. I haven't seen that anywhere else as far as a book goes. And there is one paragraph in the book where I talk about, I'm not talking about releasing junk either. I'm talking about getting a great product out there, but not doing all the extra things that can distract you from creating that great product. One of the other things that you can do as a reviewer, which is pretty cool, is you can be real transparent and just say, I was worried reading this book. For instance, I've already published, you might even say, hey, I'm an author. I already published a book. I was worried that I wouldn't find anything new. But if you found something new in here, or you heard something on this video, that's something you can mention. You might say, I was worried I saw this book was less than 10,000 words or less than 100 pages, yet I got a lot out of it. And I think there's a lot in here, and there's literally zero fluff. So I'm happy about that. But anyway, thanks so much for watching the book summary, and I really appreciate it if you write a review, and best of luck in everything you do. Thanks again.